I'm ready to mumble.
Ready to mumble. All right. I'm not going to pull any fast stuff on you guys this week, but I do want to thank Crypto Prometheus, wherever he is. Welcome, everybody, to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, January 22nd, 2016. We're joined again this week by Bytemaster, who's going to be talking about shares, the updates that Cryptonomex, his development team, are working on, and we will then take community questions. This is always the format, so if anybody who is not familiar with this format, feel free to speak up and ask your questions during the question and answer stage. And if you don't feel like it or you're not able to, feel free to type it in the client itself in the chat box. With that said, I'm going to start doing something real quick here. In the beginning of every one of these Hangouts, I just want to thank Sports-Owner from the BitShares Talk forums. He share dropped on our guest list last time something called sports.sblafc. And he says, the asset I share with you today will be worth exactly 1 BTS if whatever AFC team makes it to the Super Bowl wins the Super Bowl. It will be worth exactly 0 BTS if any other result happens. Since the future is uncertain, its current value is somewhere in between. You may sell it now for whatever you can get for it, or wait and see if you are lucky. At this point, if you are unable to borrow more of this asset into existence in the GUI and must use the CLI, I'm hoping to have this resolved soon. So thank you, Sports Owner. And then we have one more from Ingenesis. He share dropped 10 quant on everyone. And that is QUANT. And this is his little paragraph to describe what quant is. A thank you to those who make these Beyond Bitcoin Hangouts possible. You're all very valuable to anyone who's interested in gaining traction with their own project. It is lonely being a brain with passion for the back-end technologies, but having people like you is like finding gold, Quants. So please allow me to sponsor this Hangout with Quant, the new token that is the anti-dollar and is meant to represent real productivity and give back to the people. If you would like to know more about Quant, please would like to purchase Quant or read more at the Ingenesis project, which is TIP. And I believe you can Google that, but it's ingenesis.com. So thank you, everybody, for attending today. And thank you for those who sponsored our Hangout last time with share drops on our community. And Bytemaster, would you like to get started with the Hangout?
Sure. It's been another week, another update to the user interface. I'd like to thank everyone who's contributed to help resolve some of the bugs and issues that have come up in the user interface. If you haven't checked out the new worker voting interface, I encourage you to check it out. It looks pretty spiffy. In the past week, A-Bit from the forum has been pursuing a new transfer operation that supports percentage-based transaction fees. I would encourage everyone to look over the proposal and vote accordingly. He's done a lot of the implementation on that, and I want to really thank him for all the effort he's put into that particular project. We will be reviewing the code before it actually gets included, if it gets approved by the stakeholders. So there are some advantages to percentage-based voting that allows smaller transactions to go through the network while still allowing the network to profit from larger transactions. So this should help increase the adoption of BitShares and the number of use cases that it can be used for. So I think that's a good compromise between those who want low fees and those who want high fees for the referral program to function. So thank you, ABIT, for that. With respect to Stealth, Valentine and Ben have made progress this week implementing the management account that has the top N stakeholders of a particular asset being the ones that get to vote for what to do. So last I heard, Ben was in the process of unit testing a implementation on that. So there's pretty good work on that front. On the wallet side, James Caffey is continuing to make progress there. So as far as my understanding of what the team's reporting to me, we're still on schedule to have Stealth out in February.
In February?
Yes.
Are you saying it's sometime in February? You're not certain exactly when?
Development, you never know, but yeah.
Fair enough.
We were targeting middle of February, about 6 weeks to do the whole thing. I think we're still on schedule for that release.
And will that be the time when Stealth tokens are available, or will they be available sometime after, before?
They will be available after. Well, basically, when the hard fork kicks in, then once upon a time we'll have access to all the Stealth tokens, and he will be free to sell them.
Okay, I'll contact Once Upon a Time to get more details about this then. Maybe we can do a hang about it.
I believe he's here in this mumble.
Once Upon a Time, you able to speak up?
Yes, I can't do anything until I get the Stealth, and at that point in time I'll distribute some to the people who are going to be on the advisors for the management account, and then together we'll decide where to go from there.
Heck yeah.
Are there any questions for me today?
There are many, actually. However, I will open it up for the community first here in the mumble, and then we can go into the forums after if they're wanting to go that route. Does anybody have any questions right now?
Dan,
Buzz
what
asks,
do you think is the lowest of...
Could you start that over, Escape?
What's the lowest amount? Yeah. What's the lowest amount you think that transfers can be on the BitShares blockchain and still make financial sense? What's the bare minimum? Like if we go with percentage-based fees, what's the floor?
I haven't done the math on it, but considering we're able to sustain 1,000 transaction per second bursts, I would probably say set the fee to around 1 cent, maybe slightly less. Less than 1 cent doesn't make a lot of sense for people to actually be paying people in amounts smaller than 1 cent. And then if the network starts getting abused, it's really easy to up the fee and rein it back in. So I think that's the main thing we have is this control of the price. And by changing the price, whenever there's a lot of congestion, then we can ration the resources we have. So the other option is to, I guess if people are doing that many transfers, it's probably abuse, and we want to focus more on trading. I'd be happy if we would just get as many transactions as Bitcoin gets. A couple a second would be amazing for network effect. So I think that's about where I'd put it. Around 1 cent, maybe half a cent. Now, if you set it 1 cent for regular users, it'll be a fifth of a cent for lifetime member users. So that's pretty cheap.
So do you think it could, would we be able to, for example, if you wanted to send 5 BTS right now, it would cost 30 to send it. If people were able to send amounts of 5 BTS and pay a fee of 1, we'd probably see a lot more transactions, at least this early on when we could use it.
That's correct. At this point in time, we need to build community and network effect and have people try it out and get some experience with it. Anyone who's actually used the BitShares client and then used other blockchain clients, the speed and responsiveness and the things you can do are just unlike any other thing I've personally experienced. A lot of people say our interface is still not perfect, but it's so much more responsive and lively than what you get anywhere else that just letting people try it out will probably get some people to stick around.
I had to know for these new pricing, how would that affect URA? So, for example, if I would send around the bricks that are on the market, and there are millions of them, if I want to send 1 brick, how low could we really go in pricing and transaction fees?
Well, each asset, if I understand the proposal right, each asset gets to set its own policy, whether or not it supports percentage-based fees. And it uses the fee pool and the core exchange rate that you specify to figure out how much your asset is worth. So if you want to, you can subsidize people by setting a really favorable core exchange rate, but that will come at your expense. The network will guarantee that it gets at least the minimum fee. So I guess that's the answer there.
I had to sell some BitGold this week, and it was incredibly smooth process using MetaExchange and localbitcoins.com to go from BitGold to fiat in maybe 10 minutes for everything. So I was very impressed with that. And I also wanted to ask, a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned something that you were working on. It's not a high priority, it was down the road, but it was something that would put the referral program on steroids. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little. Thank you.
Yeah, the concept there was mutual aid, and the idea that if you provide a product, benefit more people than an exchange can benefit, then and the product is serving a lot of people, that will generate a lot more volume. So if people are putting $5 or $10 a month in, the fees on that would be percentage based, and the more people put in, the more the referral programs would kick off. So the idea was finding a service or a product that the blockchain can offer that can really appeal to a lot of users. The exchange market is a niche. The speculators, it is a niche. It's a very profitable niche if you can get the right people in the door. but it's not the type of thing where you can just refer it to everyone on your street and all your neighbors and all your friends and family and all your schoolmates, whatever the case may be. You can't just refer BitShares to them because they say, oh, that's cool and all, but why do I need it? Whereas mutual aid society, you say, oh, everyone can benefit from participating in a mutual aid society. So that's why I was really excited about that, and I'm still working toward the mutual aid society concept in the background, because I believe that will really help bootstrap things. The other thing I'm looking at doing to get BitShares out there is to get some high-profile assets listed on the BitShares exchange that are not available anywhere else. Imagine if something like Ethereum were only traded on BitShares. All right, so I have some leads on some projects that I think could be as big or bigger than Ethereum, and if they're only tradable on BitShares, then a lot of traders and speculators who want to get in on that will try out the BitShares exchange, and then that will hopefully help BitShares grow.
Thank you.
Definitely. Some great ideas. To back up real quick here, since we've been talking about ABIT since the beginning and the proposal of his, he says here in the forums under the question and answer portion, I perhaps can't attend or speak. Someone please help ask questions about percentage-based transfer fee. Thanks. And here are the questions. Would you support other developers and their developments? If yes, how will you support? Will you charge a fee for supporting? And if so, how much? And I'm assuming this is development support as far as consulting and stuff like that.
We will review the code and charge our normal rates for all time spent on reviewing it. In the case of the work that ABIT's done, I quoted him $1,000 to review the work that he submits, make sure that it looks right, make sure that there are unit tests for everything, and then merging it in and make it a release. So that's because he's done most of the work on that. And the only thing we have to do is verify that it works. So that, I can't say that that's the price that we'll always charge for reviewing things. It depends on the complexity of the change that's being made and a lot of other factors. And as we learn, based on how long it actually takes us to do the job, future things might be different. But yes, we welcome all third-party developments. The more developers who get familiar with the code, the better. I would appreciate any feedback people like ABIT can give us on the Graphene API. How is it developing within Graphene, and how can we make it better for you? But yes, that's it's very much welcomed, and we will help support those developers.
Awesome, thank you. The next one is, would you recommend to fund it via a work proposal or FBA or others?
It depends on how much support something has, and something like what ABIT's doing, I think would be a very interesting case for a fee-backed asset. It's a new feature, it's a new fee collection mechanism. On the other hand, the reason people would use his transfer method versus the normal transfer method is because they're trying to pay lower fees. So it might not make a whole lot of sense for that. But who knows? Maybe feedback, percentage-based transfers will make up the majority of the transfers in the future.
Hard to look into a crystal ball on that. Huh?
Yeah. So the work he's doing is only changing the blockchain. The user interface would still need some additional work to support selecting his new transfer operations versus the existing one, because his changes will not change any existing behavior. It's only adding new behavior. I think that worker proposals are probably best served for tasks that are not easily monetized through a fee-backed asset. And if it is possible to monetize something through a fee-backed asset, then it should be done in that manner. Now, at the moment, until Stealth is done, we don't have all the infrastructure to easily implement fee-backed assets. Now, that's what we're working on right now.
So what I'm gathering is fee-backed assets, maybe. It's kind of a call on his side. Your opinion is it could work out very well, but it's not going to be done easily at this juncture.
Well, my thinking is if you can find enough buyers to cover the cost of the fee-backed asset, then you've sort of proven that the asset has enough revenue generating potential in and of itself to justify implementing it.
I see. So kind of like what Once Upon a Time did and what ShareBits did.
Correct.
Good point. And what's your opinion on the fee rate, lower limit, upper limit, and percentage? Sorry, guys. I just think that it's important to grab Abit's all of his questions here on this particular Hangout.
I haven't thought too. I'm echoing.
Hold on a second.
Thomas.
Go ahead and test this. Okay, Thomas. I see what you're up to, buddy. Back on you, Bytemaster.
All right. I haven't thought too much about what kind of percentages make sense, but I would probably do something less than credit cards charge. And as far as the maximum amount, it should equal to the fixed price transfer that we have today. And the minimum amount should probably be around 0.5 cent to 1 cent. So that's the range of values I'm thinking.
Back in BitShares 1, I found something that let me make paper wallets and include, I think, even user-issued assets. Would that still be the same process today? I'd love to be able to give out paper wallets with my own user-issued assets and some BitShares to encourage adoption.
Yes, it's possible to do so. All a paper wallet is a private key. So create it. Now, if you create speculative accounts like wallet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can give out the keys to those accounts, and any assets those accounts control would be available to the paper wallet. That's the other approach is to leverage the Stealth infrastructure to create not accounts but balance objects, and you can put the claim receipt for the Stealth transfer into the paper wallet, and then when the person claims the funds, they get it. That way you don't have to register new accounts for every person that you might want to sign up.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? I just want to really quick plug this
I did
because
make
Ken
an-
Code makes a good point about OpenPS, which is something he's working on. He says the POS systems sell everything from a 5-cent jawbreaker to a 300K Ferrari. Percentage-based fees are imperative, and my daughter should not have to pay 25 cents for the jawbreaker if she pays the double network fee, which would be 32 BTS for the sale plus another 32 BTS if she has the 2 BTS donation box enabled in her wallet. Microtransactions and POS require 1-cent fees. I would really like a timetable when this would be voted on and implemented. The POS roadmap puts launch day by March. Wasn't the actual... I thought that it was already implemented, or being implemented, rather. Am I incorrect on that?
Yes, ABIT has an implementation that's in testing right now, so we need to create a worker proposal and get it funded. I think he's asked for $3 million or about $10,000 for his time spent implementing that.
And let's see here. Speaking of the testnet, Xerox released the testnet, what, a week ago?
3 days, maybe?
Is it?
To be honest, I have had nothing to do with the testnet, so I can't answer any questions about it. I do say I'm very happy that people have taken upon themselves to release it and get it out there for people to use. So good work to everyone involved with that.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the community coming together and actually doing a bunch of the stuff that's going on. The committee's really hard at work. A bunch of people are working behind the scenes on their own projects, and I see bustle and hustle in the community behind the scenes. So it's actually really hard to keep up on everything. Xerox, or anybody who's in the testnet, do you guys have anything that's important that you'd like to plug at some point in time here?
I can just mention that I'm trying to build a infrastructure for bots so that people can implement easily their strategies into bots and can run them over the DEX. And you can see some of these bots running currently already in the testnet, although they're not running regularly.
So the testnet is you're really focusing on allowing this to be available for people who are creating like trading bots, I'm assuming?
I want the network to be available for anyone that will try to interface with it and do whatever. You can even try to work around with prediction markets or whatever. It's free to use. Just do what you want.
Awesome.
So someone asked a question about what's next. I guess that's really kind of up to the community and which worker proposals we would like to fund. There are several options. I have been thinking about bond markets. I think that's a feature that the network could benefit from because a lot of traders would like leverage. I've been mulling it over, and I think I have an algorithm that will guarantee it can be efficiently implemented and guarantee that margin calls will happen, and that no one who lends money is ever at risk of losing money. And it would even have the nice benefit of having there might be more people willing to lend money than the system can actively support, because the amount of money that can be lent is directly related to the depth of the order book, and the collateral ratios required are also based upon the depth of the order book and the shape of the order book. But such such a system says that based on the orders in the order book, we can currently lend so much money, so people can bid up, what interest rates they're willing to lend at, so the network can borrow at whoever is willing to lend at the lowest interest rate. But then there's going to be a separate bidding process of people who want to actually be the ones who borrow, and they're going to be saying, how much are they willing to pay? And so there's going to be a spread between the people who want to borrow and the people who want to lend, and the network can keep that spread. And I think that would be a really cool system. Basically there will be a restricted supply on how much leverage the system supports, and the bigger and deeper the markets get, the more leverage the blockchain can enable. So I think that would be a really nice, trustless system. At the end of the day, people will probably find that it requires you to have a little bit more collateral than something like Polynix, just because of how the order books are shaped. And it will probably have the downside of slightly easier manipulation due to the fact that everyone can see where the leverage positions are.
Bytemaster, could you address the question about what exactly is the difference between bonds in a cryptocurrency market versus bonds in the real world? Like government bonds, of course, are backed by the faith and credit of the government itself, whereas you've got utility bonds, which are similarly backed by the utilities, strength. What is the difference in cryptocurrency bonds?
The collateral is on the blockchain itself. The collateral is the bond is, there's collateralized bonds and non-collateralized bonds. A credit card is a uncollateralized bond. The government bonds are uncollateralized, or they're backed by the printing press. But yeah, it's all about what mechanisms are available to guarantee that the person who lends the money gets the money back. So on a blockchain, we want to create a strong guarantee. Basically, if you lend money in this system, there is 100% chance that you will get your money back. So the only thing you're giving up is liquidity. It's just so you charge interest based on the price of liquidity, and that's the only thing you have to worry about when you're lending money on the cryptocurrency market.
It seems like it's more of a synonym to a certain degree. There's a synonymic, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, it's a synonym to a lending.
Synonymous.
Synonymous. It's a synonym for a lending vehicle. There are many lending vehicles in the BitShares world, in the cryptocurrency world. This is just another name for it that probably is used to being able to couple it with a real world bond, the real world thing.
Yeah. So the other thing that would be interesting to add to the network would be the EVM or the maker asset proposal. Those are two things that could be added. And they all have different pros or cons of which one's better. Adding the margin lending can help, but once again, the only amount of extra liquidity that you'll get from that is going to be proportional to the depths of beforehand. So you still have the bootstrapping problem. Now you could probably help that by having the network subsidize those who give up liquidity in order to fund lending, and paying people who keep orders on the book in order to improve the depth. There's various things you can do there. So I do think that we do need a bootstrap of liquidity. in some form or the other. Now the EVM does something else. It bootstraps developers. It gives people a way to build applications on BitShares without having to go through the voting process.
And that was a question by Travel Asia. He asked, have you thought any further about adding EVM?
I haven't studied the implementation details. I just concluded that it'd be nice to have something very close to it. Now, EVM is not just a simple you add it. There's making it integrate with everything else in the system is also important. I suppose it would be possible to have the EVM subsystem be, I guess, initially isolated from the rest of the network with its own asset that you can only buy by converting to and from BitShares. I don't know, something like that. So the Ethereum EVM contracts can't interface with the other BitShares features. That would be the initial way that I would start it out. And the primary benefit the Ethereum users would gain would be faster confirmation times, more predictable, and lower latency. So I would probably start out that way. In fact, with the custom operations that we already support on the blockchain, you could probably implement an EVM module on BitShares that doesn't require any hard forks to BitShares whatsoever to get started.
Interesting. So this could
Ethereum virtual machine for everyone who doesn't know what EVM stands for.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I normally try my best to make sure that everybody knows what these things mean. I failed on that one. Real quick, iHash Fury brought up a good point, and Morpheus is the gentleman's name who brought this up. He says the risk-reward profile doesn't work. That is why we have zero growth in liquidity since 2.0 launch. It's time to make a change. Reducing forced settlement to 99% of the fee and lending market will fix this and put smart coin creators in their true role as lenders. Thoughts on that?
Sure, that will lower the price and get it closer to parity, but it doesn't actually change anything else other than just changing where the equilibrium price in the market is. Now, it might change people's perceptions in the short term, and I've long said that adjusting the forced settlement price until the premium is canceled out and you trade up near parity is a viable option. It all depends on what guarantees you want to provide to people. So
this isn't something where you could have, could we have a separate market that functions in this way, and then they could kind of, compete with one another? Are there ways that people who disagree with you, like Morpheus, could actually set up a market that actually follows what they think is the best way?
That's what the privatized bid assets are all about. That's why we have T, C, and Y.
And what would somebody like Morpheus want to do, like to get started, if they were interested in competing against these other chains, these other coins? Wow.
Well, what I would probably do is create a worker proposal that's just a voting mechanism that says change BitUSD to be 99% instead of 100% of the fee. Have people vote for that, and if they like it, then they can do that, and it'll adjust it down, and it'll behave just like the other markets. In my opinion, the network should focus on one fiat currency and get all the liquidity there. Now, I suppose in these uncertain times where there's rumors of a devaluation of the yuan or something like that, that people might want to be able to trade USD versus CNY. But
good point.
I think that having one asset backed by BitShares and everyone else trading against, a bid asset backed by another bid asset might be a better approach toward liquidity, and give traders, they can speculate on the CNY dollar ratio without having to worry about the BitShares price movements.
Bytemaster, Johnny Bitcoin posted a post in the forum about a trade between Brent Alsop. He liquidated a sizable sum of BTS, and I'm wondering.
He's here today.
Yes, I understand. So basically, he liquidated a bunch of BitUSD, and Johnny Bitcoin was raising the issue of why couldn't our orders match? And I made the observation that, well, we changed that process from 1.0, and I couldn't remember exactly why. I do seem to remember that there were some good reasons for it. Could you review that a little bit, please?
Sure. When you force settle, there's a delay between when you request it and when it happens. And you say, I want to settle at the price. Well, if the price changes, right, we originally conceived of like a 24-hour delay, because if you allow people to instantaneously force settle, then they could take advantage of price feed movements or delays in markets, and right, because the price feed can't update instantaneously. All the witnesses have to go through and wait until they decide they're going to publish it. So any trades that go on at the price feed need to be delayed so that the user who's making the trade doesn't know in advance what the settlement price is going to be. Now, if you say, well, when the settlement comes, there's orders on the books, you should give them the best of the two. Well, now you've given them heads, I win, tails, you lose kind of situation. And that's going to make forced settlement abuse a much bigger problem, because users can request forced settlement, and they're going to get the best of the two prices, and so they're basically protected for free against any price movements between when they requested to sell the forced settlement and when it actually executes.
Thank you.
There have been some questions regarding the Ethereum virtual machine, and there's some questions on the performance.
Sure, I'm going to get there. I just want to stop this just for one moment, just to remind everybody here. If you go out in public and you talk to people about blockchain technology, and if developers or project leaders go out to talk about blockchain-based projects, people generally are going to look at them like they have no clue what the heck they're talking about and don't care. You guys are really important to this ecosystem. So I always want to take a moment to remind all of you that we have a guest book to sign. If you're interested in being having yourself noted that you were here, that you participated in our community discussion, that you're trying to help drive this forward and improve our ecosystem, you will become one of the share drop targets for individuals that I talk to in the future about wanting to bootstrap their own projects. So I just want to let you guys know, feel free to sign it. You don't have to. It is open to do so, though. And then back to BEDX, which is the issues on performance of implementing the EVM. Is that what you're talking about, Bytemaster?
Correct. So for starters, we have if you just wanted to get a clone of Ethereum and you tie in the currency, you can do a lot of this without having to hard fork BitShares, because the Ethereum virtual machine state can be completely independent of the EVM state within BitShares can be independent of all the other blockchain state. And there's just a little bit of tie-in whenever you convert BitShares into the Ethereum currency and back again. So that leaves only how fast can operations be processed within the EVM. And there are several things that I would do differently than Ethereum. For starters, I wouldn't use LevelDB. I'd use an in-memory database for all the state. And that would give a huge performance boost. And the other thing I would do is eliminate the need to calculate the trigraph on their storage. The hash of the resulting state is useful for some applications, but generally speaking, I don't think it's worth the cost to calculate that. At the very least, it's not necessary to calculate it in real time for what we're doing. We have a deterministic record of the order of events that we can use to apply the state machine and derive that information at any time we need it in the future. But that's where a large part of the bottleneck is doing all those computational operations every time the state is modified in Ethereum. So with those two changes, neither of which should impact the programming language or environment or how you build your applications, we could get a dramatic improvement in the throughput of processing Ethereum operations. It'll probably not be as dramatic as going from BitShares 1 to Graphene, but it should certainly offer something much more competitive than what Ethereum is able to offer. So if we did that, would we necessarily get developers on the BitShares platform? I don't know. I think implementing the EVM is a very, very small part of the larger problem. Developing user interfaces, it's an order of magnitude more expensive than implementing the blockchain. The other aspect is the developer tools around it. Just because you support the virtual machine doesn't mean all the compilers and other utilities that you need are implemented to make it possible to use it. And even if you had all the developer tools and support on the blockchain, that doesn't guarantee you the developers are going to come along and use it. They might stick with Ethereum. But so it's not a magic, add this feature and we grow. It's more of slowly and steadily improving the features that we offer. And if we continue to do so, we'll continue to be an interesting place for people to build businesses and to benefit from being within our community.
Ken Code brings up a good question. I'm trying to figure out if it means what I think it means, but if it does, he's saying plasma to the ETH blockchain so DApp devs can utilize our stuff and us, theirs. Is it possible?
Most things are possible if you have enough time and money.
And Bedek says, that's a good point. Bedek says the trick is to interop with Solidity, Web3, etc.
Yes.
Anybody have any ideas on how to ensure that this is as easy as possible? What the next step would be?
The next step is to find someone who's very familiar with Ethereum and is interested in helping add their EVM to Graphene. And I think that this is the type of thing that could probably be funded with a fee-backed asset. So if there is enough demand for it on BitShares, a fee-backed asset could be created, and it could even be possible to raise all the funds in advance as long as the funds aren't spent until the project is delivered. So that way, if something did happen and the project never delivered, the funds could be returned, and in that way you're not actually creating a security, it's more of a pre-order. But yes, that'd be how I'd approach it. I'd create a fee-backed asset that uses the gas that's spent to run the smart contracts to buy back the asset. If there's enough demand for it and there's a high enough market cap for it, then it'll get developed. It's almost a whole new project in and of itself, so that's how I do it.
SXIS said toast. We could ask him. I think he's pretty busy with other projects, but I'm sure if enough people will reach out to him and let him know that there's a potential for a fee-backed asset that he could gain an income stream from, that might wet his lips and make him interested. But there are other places we can go to grab Ethereum people and see if we can work together with them.
The main thing you need for a project of that magnitude is someone to head it up. This is not the type of thing where you implement it and it's done. It really requires a dedicated team, someone to be the leader and spearhead that project, and for everyone else to rally behind. So if anyone is interested in that, then take it up. I will welcome the addition of it to the BitShares network. I will vote for any hard forks required to add it to the network. So it's just a matter of getting the funding for it and getting the developers for it. And if we have those two things, then it's a go. If we can't get those two things, then we'll just have to wait until there is demand for it.
I know I certainly would be interested in covering it in Hangouts. I consider something like that to be a milestone for BitShares. CCDK says, can you write this up to be clear on what is needed? That would require quite a bit of time on my part just to get my head wrapped around what's needed. So, sure. Could a worker proposal be taken out to kind of take some of that time to, as a, for a consulting fee or something?
I think if someone is really interested in pursuing that idea and wants to create the asset for it, that you would do it in phases, where phase one is a feasibility study, where you come and you test the market to see how much funding is available for a project. Having the broad goal of being able to use BTS to fund smart contracts using the Ethereum virtual machine on BitShares. I think that's a broad enough goal, and keeping it constrained enough to say that the virtual machine state is almost completely independent from the other blockchain state is a way of simplifying the problem. And then in the future, you can enhance the virtual machine state to give it access to the rest of the graphene state.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, or are we pretty much comfortable with where we stand at this juncture?
Can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
Yeah, I created an issue on GitHub regarding how Satoshi amounts are handled when their value is, say, comparable to 1 BTS. So, say if I issued an asset with a precision of 0, and each one had a core exchange rate of, it was 3 BitShares to 1 asset. Basically, this asset would be worth, pennies. They couldn't be subdivided. Currently, if I was to make a transaction with one of those pennies, the network takes maybe 2/3 more than it needs. So
the rounding error is in the network's favor.
Yeah. Because when you're dealing with, say, a penny amount, the network might only require 1/3 of a penny, and I would expect to keep the other 2/3, but instead it takes the whole thing.
That's why we have fixed point and precision. Anything below that level, the network has a choice. It can either get 0 or 1. It can't get fractional Satoshis.
It doesn't need to get fractional Satoshis. It just takes too much out of the fee pool. I would just ask that it leaves the BTS that's not needed in the fee pool.
So you're saying it converts the fee to 1 BTS, a lot of BTS worth of the fee, but you only need 1/3 of it. So
yes, exactly.
In theory, I see. Such a change could be made. I think that would be in the spirit of what's intended with the fee pool, that if a user is paying, so that from the user's perspective, they pay in 1 unit of this currency, you would get it, and then you would provide the minimum fee necessary without any overage coming out of the fee pool. So if the conversion to the fee pool generates a fee that's being paid that's higher than what's actually required, the balance should be returned to the fee pool, is what you're saying.
Yep, exactly.
Why doesn't changing the precision to 1 get around all that?
Because I don't want...
It just moves the problem. So now instead of amounts less than 0.1 would have the same issue. So wherever you set your precision, anytime there's a rounding error in the exchange rates, there's going to be, all rounding errors have to favor someone. And in this case, we have a way where you got 2 assets with different precision levels, and a rounding error in 1 asset might result in too much of another asset, but there's things we can do in this case to improve how the fee pool handles that rounding error. It comes at the cost of probably a little bit more calculations on every fee that we process to check what it should be versus what it is, and then refund the delta to the fee pool. I think that's something I would support doing. The cost to make that change is the cost of preparing a release and testing it. So I think it's going to be a relatively expensive fix compared to the value or the benefit. So,
anybody disagree with this?
You could roll it in with some other change. I guess that would help to defray the cost or spread the cost out.
Well, the main cost is implementing and then testing it versus rolling it out with something else. So I'd say a day to implement, a day to test.
Yeah.
So it'll be a couple $1,000 to make sure that we don't break anything else in the process. But yeah, I think that would be it's a good issue to put on GitHub. I'm glad you filed it. I think we can track down a better way of handling it.
Great.
All right, everybody. It is approximately 10:02, so we are right around an hour. If everybody is good where we're at, I'd like to go ahead and end this. Does anybody have anything pressing, though, before I do? There we go. Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending. I'm going to be dropping some. Oh, yeah, thank you, iHashFury. I almost forgot about that. You posted earlier. iHashFury posted earlier that CCEDK has the fiat gateway open. Is that correct? The first transaction went today. So anybody who wants to go ahead and have a fiat gateway where they can deposit their fiat and get into crypto, CCEDK is now sitting on 2 validated deposits. Okay, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be share dropping some try BitShares on everybody here today. What I've been doing with them is going around to people on Twitter, and I've got some people who are some Twitter accounts who have a lot of followers who have actually retweeted me and favorited it. I send them a tweet saying, giving them their name or their username, and then saying, share bits. Give this 100 try BitShares, enjoy 3-second transaction times, separations of power rather, and market pegged assets. And I send it to them, and people are seeming like they're very interested. So I just want to let you guys know the bot will enable you to through Reddit, so you could go to cryptocurrency posts where people were talking about the best stuff out there, and you can actually get it into people's hands within that post that you respond to them in. So this is just an extra tool I just want to let everybody know about, and we are going to be share dropping share bits somewhere around Valentine's Day. Those are going to be released. So anybody who's using this bot and is interested in utilizing it to reach out to people, feel free to do so. And if you own some share bits in the process, then you will definitely be able to make more off of it. Actually, maybe get a good income stream. And if anybody wants to talk to me about some ShareBot stuff, please feel free to join me in the smoking room after this. Does anybody have anything that they are working on that they would like to talk about or plug?